Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Green Flag. I'm your host, Lucas Wacker, and with me, as always, we have Kyle Cushman. And welcome to the fourth of 5 episodes of this Speed Week coverage here at the Green Flag. We're almost at the end of things here. We've got a kind of a late night edition of it, but early morning whenever you guys are going to be watching this.
Technically early morning for me too.
Exactly. We've got the Xfinity and Truck Series races to recap as well. We'll touch on the ARCA Menard Series race that happened on Saturday as well. So we'll get through that. A short and sweet episode, I think, here. We'll just go through the races. We didn't want to have to do this tomorrow's episode with an instant Daytona 500 recap kind of thing. It just makes sense for that to be its standalone event, and this can be its own thing here so that we can focus entirely on the Great American Race coming tomorrow on Fox. Going to be an exciting one there, but we got some news and notes just quickly on setting you up for the Daytona 500 tomorrow in terms of who's going to back up cars and whatnot that's happened today. But before we get into all that, how you doing today, Kyle?
I'm doing good. We had races. We've got official regular season races in the books now, and I gotta say, Truck Series delivered as per usual. It was a pretty crazy race the entire time. We barely got any green flag laps in, but when we did, they were pretty chaotic. Today's racing a little bit less so. ARCA was kind of ARCA. Xfinity was kind of hit or miss at times, but a nice finish regardless. But feeling good, excited to talk about these races today and all leading up to the big race, I guess, today technically.
Yeah, it's crazy that we're here. Not even one day. We're mere hours away from the drop of the green flag of the Daytona 500. But let's get into what the races look like for the Truck Series and Xfinity Series. But first, we have the Cup Series just quickly on them. Today, there was practice all rained out for the Cup Series. Technically, they had about one lap for some guys that were out there.
They got like 2.5 minutes in. Yeah,
exactly, before the rain started to come down, which impacted the Xfinity Series race, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. Martin Truex Jr. is changing an oil cooler, so he's going to be starting at the rear of the field along with Eric Jones. He's changing an engine, and he will drop to the back on the pace lots for the Daytona 500. So that's joining a whole bunch of names there tomorrow. There's a whole bunch of big heavy hitters that are going to be having to come to the rear. Both of those guys are in our fantasy lineups respectively. I've got Eric Jones. Kyle has got Martin Truex Jr. If you missed that, he did the randomizer, random.org in our fantasy preview in the last episode that came out, I guess, 2 days ago now when you're seeing this. So he got Martin Truex Jr. by fluke, so we'll see if he comes from the back to the front to help him out in terms of the 500 tomorrow.
The word I use.
Yeah, yes. Back to the front. I've always said it. I think it's an advantage to start at the rear more than the front. So we'll see if it actually translates to that for Jones and for Truex. Alex Bowman, there was a lot of stuff going on in the Hendrick Motorsports garage area about whether or not they're going to change engine for the Sunday race tomorrow. He had some issues in the duels that prevented him from really being in contention. I don't know how much in contention he would have been in the duels if he wanted to keep that car in one piece, but he had some struggles, and his pole position, starting position was in jeopardy, but they have decided to keep that engine in. They've run some diagnostics on it, and they feel good about what that 48 car has underneath the hood of it. So they're going to go with it. They're not going to fall to the back on the pace laps. They want to keep that starting spot, unlike their teammate there in William Byron, who is dropping to the back with a backup car. So
he didn't have much of a choice there.
I don't think they could have really run that car, but Alex Bowman, we have one half of the starting grid that qualified on Wednesday night staying there for today's Daytona 500. And then we have the ARCA Menard Series race. Kyle, we can quickly touch on this as well. Congratulations to Corey Heim on winning the race in the season opener here at Daytona today. It was ahead of Drew Dollar and Brett Holmes in a one-lap dash to the finish. There's no green-white checkered in ARCA. It's just a one-lap dash, and I mean, it is ARCA Series racing at Daytona. On the super speedway tracks, it is a bit difficult to watch sometimes. It is a bit of an eyesore. There was lots of cautions, lots of long cleanups. I felt like we spent at least half the race under caution at times. And then when we did actually end up racing, it was interesting to say the least. So what did you make of the ARCA Menard Series race that happened earlier this afternoon?
It was a classic ARCA race at Daytona, especially with this package and this generation of car that they've been working with. It's just such a miss in this series, and we kind of heard comments from Ty Gibbs being frustrated with it afterwards as well, so showing some personality there. So I guess he's a classic Joe Gibbs racing driver, I guess, in the future here.
Mold.
Yeah, exactly. But no, it's what we come to expect from ARCA right now. The series isn't that deep. There's about 5 or 6 really competitive cars, if that at times.
Yeah.
And the rest are just kind of field fillers. And we saw that throughout this race. We saw a 5-car breakaway at the end of the race. And if it wasn't for a caution, we were going to have kind of 3 versus 2 there for finish, which could have been interesting to see and how that would have played out. But instead, we get the 1-lap dash to the finish. The two Venturini drivers at the front there, Drew Dollar and Corey Heim, work out the teammate strategy to perfection. You only get the 1 lap, so it wasn't like anybody was really going to be able to get a run on them. Brett Holmes got a run late there, almost nabbed second place from Drew Dollar, but really it was Corey Heim as soon as the caution flag went out and they got the restart down. It was Corey Heim's race to lose, goes out and gets it done, and a nice little start to the season for the number 20 Venturini driver.
Yeah, I think that's 4 years in a row Venturini's won the season opener as well. So
That's
pretty impressive for that organization. I just remember Venturini from Wendy Venturini when she did the Fox Sports stuff as the pit reporter. That's all I think about when I hear that team name. But congratulations to Corey Heim on starting his hopeful championship bid in the ARCA Menard Series off with a flying start with a win there. And Drew Dollar also impressed this weekend entirely on the Truck Series side of things and on ARCA, as we just touched on there. We'll talk about the Truck Series. I think right now we don't have to spend too much time on the ARCA Menard Series. It was just it was a race that happened at Daytona.
One final thing, shout out to Jamie Little, shout out to Fox.
Oh, yes, of course. She did an amazing job.
Fantastic. Yeah, Jamie Little was great on the broadcast. It was cool having past driver Phil Parsons, who's used to that color commentary role, and Chase Briscoe, who's a current driver and brand new to it. I thought they were pretty solid for being first time basic. The only one that was experienced in the role was Phil Parsons. So very, very good job on the broadcast for that. And also 2 women doing the pit reporting as well. So over 50% of the broadcast for Fox on ARCA there was women involved, which is really cool to see because a lot of the time in motorsports, it's very much male dominated. We had 3 female drivers in the field as well. Didn't really go any other way. It was unfortunate to see Brittany Zamora kind of drop out right away. But I got to say, if we can kind of see this trend continue in ARCA, I'm definitely on board.
Yeah, Gracie Trotter had an up and down race as well. She was all over the place, it felt like. But, she looked solid early on. She was just a bit eager at times and wrong place at the wrong time in a lot of senses as well. So unfortunate there that she probably didn't get the result that she deserved at the end of the day. She should have been in top 5 most likely, but
she got quite a bit of that in that race, whether that's being up front, learning to draft a little bit, learning what not to do as well when she kind of unfortunately dumped her teammate there in Derek Griffith. And then learning also sometimes it doesn't matter what you do. You can just be in the wrong place at the wrong time. And we saw that when she got involved with, I think it was the 01. So not exactly the best of debuts for the ARCA National Series, but she'll be running that 25 multiple times throughout the year. And I'm sure she's going to have a couple more great showings.
For sure. A great overall broadcast. They did a fabulous job there at Fox. It's really great to see that they're taking on the Women in Motorsports initiative strongly, and they're really putting their sport out ahead of the pack. Really, it's pretty impressive. So congratulations to everybody involved there at Fox Sports and to Jamie Little on making her debut. And we'll see what the future has in store for this series as the year rolls along. So let's get into the Truck Series recap here. It was pretty spicy. We watched this one together, Kyle. It started right from the get-go. James Buescher didn't even get to make a lap. He didn't even get to take the green flag. No pun intended there. Green flag, yada, yada, yada. But
more like the caution flag yesterday.
Yeah, it was even today too. Like it was nuts. I think that trend's going to continue tomorrow. But James Buescher in the 44 truck unfortunately has his race come to an abrupt halt as he didn't even make it to the green flag, the start finish line before wrecking. So just a chain reaction there. And Derek Kraus suffers the first of many issues throughout the race. So that was just a rough day for him. Tanner Gray had a really,
night.
It was not. Tanner Gray had a rough start there. I don't know what the heck happened with it.
He had some engine problem or something. He was out before the green flag even went as well. So at least he got some racing in today in the ARCA race, but definitely not the start to the year for Tanner Gray either.
No. And Rafael Lessard won stage 1 as well. Pretty quick stages, 20 laps. The Canadian representing, very impressive showing, I thought, from him in the 24 truck here at Daytona, showing that Talladega win last year maybe was no fluke. He actually seems like he's pretty comfortable on these super speedway tracks. So he wins that stage ahead of Sheldon Creed and Enfinger. Remember, he's in this race only part-time, though. 12 races for him on the season. No full-time duties for Enfinger this year. Nemechek also looked pretty good there. Sauter was up in the mix along with Ben Rhodes there. Those two are pretty identical, not in just terms of paint schemes on that ugly gray color, but they also seem pretty closely compact throughout the race as well. Chandler Smith, David Gilliland, and Timothy Peters all collected points there in that first stage. So Timothy Peters showing a little bit of muscle in this one. We've seen him do really well in these super speedways in the past, and he had an issue later on, which we'll talk about. But pretty solid overall day from Timothy Peters there. John Hunter Nemechek won stage 2 in his KBM debut, so pretty solid showing from him. And, Derek Kraus had some issues, Kyle. This was probably one of the underlying stories based off of the overall wrecks. But Derek Kraus, the guy I have making the playoffs this season, had multiple issues that started on that first lap there, had a couple of other spins for just not repairing that damage from the initial get-go, having multiple flat tires throughout the day. And it just seemed like his night just couldn't get any worse.
Yeah, it was a rough debut on the season for Derek Kraus, as it was for multiple people in this race. It was very much hit or miss for a lot of these guys in the Truck Series field. But yeah, Derek Kraus, he's going to be in a dogfight for one of those playoff positions. I think he's going to be very close, if not making it by the end of the season, but definitely not the way that they wanted to start the season. They were starting in the back with some pretty poor qualifying, got caught up in that Buescher Gray kind of mess there and just kind of ruined the race from there. Didn't quite get any of the sheet metal fixed up and had a couple blown tires, had a couple spins. Just very much was not his night, to say the least.
No, it wasn't. It's a shame because I thought I was expecting him to do pretty well, but you live and you learn, and he moves on to the Daytona Road Course next week. So hopefully he can actually make the green flag next week and not have any issues prior to that. Ben Rhodes was an interesting storyline throughout this race as well. ThorSport obviously switching over to the Toyota stable, and they seem to be working relatively well together. The entire manufacturer there of Toyota, they seem to be up there at the front, mixing it with the GMS guys for the most part. The Gillilands were up there as well, and we'll touch on that right now as Todd Gilliland sparks the first big wreck of the day, being one of the big names involved in that one. It was just a freak accident there. John Hunter Nemechek on the inside gets into Matt Crafton, who then gets into Todd Gilliland, and then that sparks a couple of guys ending their races there. Stuart Friesen was involved in that one. So a tough look there for Nemechek in some respects. They're just kind of sticking his nose in there. Crafton couldn't really do anything to avoid that one. And Todd Gilliland was an innocent bystander. Luckily, nobody else was involved in that one, but if they missed that one, they were involved in a later one, most likely. So what did you make of that incident there, Kyle? Nemechek just being a little bit too over-aggressive?
Actually, no, I'm not blaming that one on Nemechek.
Okay.
I'm looking more at Todd Gilliland for that one because he was just kind of indecisive there. You need to commit to the high line, the middle line, or the low line when they're 3 wide. There's not a lot of margin for error there. And he kind of wanted to block the high side, but then also stay on the middle or something. And he ended up getting split both ways. There was nothing that either line could do. And then it's just kind of jumbling up from there. And sure, you could maybe put some blame on Nemechek or something, but when people are checking up like that and it's 3 wide, it's always going to end poorly. So really, I'm looking at that as more of a racing incident, but if I were to put blame anywhere, it'd be on Gilliland for not really committing to a line. If he commits to a line, maybe they check up, maybe there's a wreck further back in the field. And so it's one of those situations where probably something was going to go haywire anyways. But Todd Gilliland is always in the mix on these super speedways, but it also feels like every time he's also involved in something pretty big. And to be fair, you can say that about a lot of people at super speedways. But this was another incident that was, if not started by Gilliland, well, he was one of the first trucks involved.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I just wanted to tease you, to set you up there a little bit, see if you would bite.
Yeah.
But, Ben Rhodes made it 4
I'm
wide
not
there.
suing my boy John Hunter.
No, you're not. No, you're not. But Ben Rhodes made it 4 wide on the outside there. But the reason he made that move was because Gilliland was just kind of in no man's land right in the middle of the lane. And there was room to his outside there, and there was a truck to his inside there. So there was room for Rhodes to probably force it on the outside there. Maybe a bit too aggressive at that point in time, I'd say, with 30 laps to go. He could maybe take a little bit more of a pause, but they are truck drivers, and they are very over-aggressive at times, and we see that quite often on these super speedways. And unfortunately,
it's why we love them.
It is going to be it's shaping up to be an incredible season already when you just look at the super speedways, and the fact that one of these guys we'll talk about in a second here almost upset the entire playoff picture here for the season to come is pretty incredible to think. But yeah, and then on this one, a terrible cleanup job, Kyle. This was terrible, and it sparked the next accident there with Hailie Deegan, who had an impressive showing for the first half of the race, kind of slid back after a pit stop, I think it was, and then just never really regained that track position back. But she ends up spinning there just because drivers are all very cautious there because the speedy dries all over the place, and it looks like there's a wreck happening in front of them. It's just everywhere, and I can't blame them for
Yeah, there
checking
was
up.
people pulling down to the apron
Exactly.
for all the mess that was after that. And I'm sure, as they were talking about on the broadcast as well, it's not as bad as it looks on camera when you're in the car or truck, sorry, I should say. But when you're that far back, all you see is all this looks like smoke essentially come up.
Yep.
And we saw multiple people pull down. We still didn't get a clear angle as to whether Deegan got tagged or whether she just kind of got loose or something like that. I don't know if she got any help on that one, but an unfortunate early end to her day, especially given started up front, moved to the back, was taking things patient, with just getting used to the car. And yeah, just unfortunate that we didn't get to see her kind of get back up into the pack by the end of the race and see if she could make anything work. Because don't forget, last year at Daytona, she finished second there. At Talladega, she was up in the front pack, got hung out to dry by Riley Herbst in that race, in that awful Talladega ARCA race. But a bit of a back and forth debut for Deegan this season. I like the strategy that they were going with. They got a lot of really strong pieces around her. TJ Majors was her spotter for this one and was doing a great job helping her out through this one, but an unfortunate early end for her season.
Yeah, it was a bit of a rough debut, up and down throughout the night. She can definitely take some positives away, but there were some negatives as well. So I think from here, we'll see what she does on the road course next week at Daytona, but we won't really know how Deegan is really doing in that truck's performance as well till we get to the 1.5 miles and a bit more traditional types of tracks. So
yeah, interested to see how she does next time out at the road course as well.
Yeah, I am as well. We're all waiting for that Bristol Dirt as well with Hailie Deegan. I think that could be quite the show as well. A lot of people
in the truck series.
Yeah, it's going to be. I'm looking forward to that respect with the truck series at the Bristol Dirt.
Yeah.
But
they've done it before, so
yeah, it's more accustomed to what that series is. But
yeah,
we move into the final couple of laps here. Chandler Smith has an issue there. He was up at the front. The KBM guys seem to be working together pretty well, and he has a tire up. I think was from contact with Enfinger. And then he ends up spinning, and we had a single truck spin prior to that.
Lucky for him that he spun. Yeah.
Yeah, and then now they didn't throw the caution for Moffitt a couple of laps prior to that, so then they had to keep that consistent with Chandler Smith, so they did not throw the caution for him, and he spun in the same location. A single truck spin, no harm, no foul. But when the camera was on Chandler Smith, little did they know there was an entire major big one happening on the back straightaway there as his teammate there, and Drew Dollar gets into Timothy Peters, who pulls a late block. Definitely Peters' mistake there. You would think a little bit better from Peters there, the veteran there. But running second, gets loose off the nose of Dollar, goes low, and then he overcorrects it, and then it comes right back in front of the pack. And there are some very, very heavy hitters in this one that are knocked out of contention. Austin Hill in this one, my pick to win. Rafael Lessard, unfortunately, was involved in this one. Just kind of contact there. They almost had it miss, but Hill got into the outside wall. Lessard was right there, so they couldn't do anything about it. Johnny Sauter was in this one. He looked pretty solid. Had some questionable moments at times with leaving his teammate out to dry at the end of that second stage there, but nonetheless, Sauter did look pretty decent. Qualified on pole as well for this one, so not too bad there. John Hunter Nemechek was involved in this one. Tyler Ankrum, for the love of God, that was the longest camera shot I've ever seen in my life. We commented on that. Like, we get it. Ankrum is involved in this one, and there's some damage to the truck. Like, it's he's out of the race, but like, it's not like he was dominating the entire race or anything like that. But interesting camera choice there from the director. And then Carson Hocevar and a couple of others, I'm sure, was involved in it. So they
big wreck,
big one. This one was just all Timothy Peters, Kyle.
Yeah, I would put it close to 100%. Really, it was. Dollar had the momentum on the inside. I think Peters was looking to side draft and came back down, and just he was there by the time he came back down. And we saw that in Xfinity today as well, where people would go up side draft and try to get back down, except when you go up and side draft and the guy behind you doesn't do the same, they're going to carry that momentum and put you out to dry. So just one of those situations for Timothy Peters. Been a couple of years since he ran in the truck series, so I don't know if you can really use that as an excuse either. And it was an impressive debut for that new team. They were running strong up inside the top 10 for basically the entire night. So unfortunate to see that early end to their night, because I thought they could have been a top 10, top 5 contender come the end of the race had they stayed clean.
Yeah, I was pretty impressed by him the entire night. Like, this is a new
Yeah,
team
no,
here. Like,
exactly.
they seem like they had some pretty decent speed. We'll see if that translates to any other types of tracks. But Timothy Peters always good on these. It just had an error in judgment there. I don't know if the spotter cleared him or not. We don't know. But if it did come down to that and the spotter cleared him and he definitely was not, then I can't put the entire blame on Timothy Peters there. But it is what it is. It just took out a lot of great trucks at the end of this one. And then there are some guys that just were able to be out in front of that one and had some pretty nifty moves to get through that as well. So we get to NASCAR overtime, the first one of the season. And oh boy, did it not disappoint. It was incredible. So we go to the white flag here. Sheldon Creed gets an incredible push from none other than Corey Roper. You heard me right. Corey Roper,
Like,
the
what?
04 truck, coming out of nowhere to be involved at the end of this one. There was a lot of trucks taken out, so a lot of these guys that were stragglers at the back trying to keep their nose clean for many different reasons, budgetary reasons, trying to make sure that that truck comes home in decent condition so they don't have to put too much money into rebuilding it. So Corey Roper, definitely one of those guys, came in about 3 weeks or so before the season started here and announced that he was going full-time with this team. So bit of a late transition there to get it full-time. And he was right there in the thick of things at the end of it. Sheldon Creed, obviously the leader, like I said. Then Corey Roper, they get into the outside wall a little bit, and then it kind of breaks the momentum a little bit. Then Roper swings to the inside, goes inside of Sheldon Creed, and takes the lead definitively.
Looked like he'd been there before.
I know, the guy looks like a veteran up front there. I don't know where this speed came from, but Corey Roper was a man on a mission to upset the playoff field here at Daytona. What a story that would have been. So he makes the aggressive move, going to the inside, and then coming off of turn 4. Roper held the lead the entire time, coming to turn 4. Out of it, though, Ben Rhodes gets a huge run from the inside lane there, goes high. Roper can't do anything about it. He can't block it. So they side draft a little bit. Then there's wrecking behind him. Drew Dollar's involved. Matt Crafton's involved. It seemed like everyone's involved. Jordan Anderson was not involved, though. He sneaks his way through, goes from 10th all the way to an unfortunate second place once again at the photo finish at the stripe. It comes out with Ben Rhodes winning the season opener at Daytona in a photo finish there. Corey Roper comes home in third with Jordan Anderson second there. Just an incredible finish. If you have not watched it, I would highly recommend going and tuning in, because
watch full race highlights. It was a really strong season opener.
Really good. It was pretty crazy to see these guys that, Jordan Anderson coming second again 2 years in a row, familiar face, I guess, to an extent, at the front of the field at Daytona. But Corey Roper, a huge storyline out of this one. And then Ben Rhodes, of it all, a guy that we had both making the playoffs here, start the season off with ThorSport, switching over to Toyota over the offseason there. We didn't know what his future had in store when they made that switch, if he would maybe get released after the antics that happened last season at the end of it. But he stays around, and he starts the season off with a win there, Kyle. What do you make of that finish there? It was pretty hectic.
I'll start with Mr. Corey Roper, because how about that storyline? Like, that was insane. He had one top 10 finish in his entire Truck Series career previous to that, and that was the 9th place at Texas in 2019. Last year, ran half the season up until that second Daytona, the second race at Daytona, but of course the road course didn't run anything after that point. In 2 plate races or super speedways that he's run before this, both at Daytona, 20th in 2019, 14th at 2020, and then all of a sudden he shows up at the front of the field this time and looks like he's been there, putting veteran moves on, swinging back and forth between really lines. Impressive. Like, it was some impressive stuff. Unfortunate that he didn't get quite the finish that he wanted there, but I'm sure he was ecstatic with a 3rd place finish, the best of his career by far to this point. Jordan Anderson once again, 2nd place, just that close once again. Last year it was the 98. This year it's the 99. So I guess next year, because there's no 100 truck, I guess it's got to be his year. Unless the 00, but for some reason I don't think the 00 will be there. Now watch me eat my words next year, but that would be quite the storyline. But no, Jordan Anderson, another 2nd place finish, another fantastic post-race interview as well.
Oh yeah,
you gotta love that guy so much. He's been fantastic in those post-race interviews for 2nd place. Even he's just such a positive guy, and to see a small team like that get that kind of result again is fantastic. But Ben Rhodes goes out and gets the win. ThorSport wins in their first race back with Toyota as well. Locks himself, you would think, into the playoffs, although technically we don't know for certain, because anything can happen in the Truck Series this year. But we talked about in our Truck Series season preview, Ben Rhodes is a pretty solid bet to make the playoffs just because of how consistent he's been. And starting off the year with a win is going to be huge for him. We'll see if he can continue picking up wins this year, or if maybe he'll be more of that consistent kind of guy. Once again, we haven't seen him pick up a bunch of wins so far in his Truck Series career. It's kind of been a win here and there, and basically just consistent top 10 finishes to get his way through. But at this point of his career, if he's going to make it to those next levels, he needs to start winning races consistently. And maybe this is the start of a really, really special year for him.
Could be. I mean, I'm still in shock, honestly, from that finish, man. And it's almost
and again,
30 hours
we're talking
later.
about veteran moves, a fantastic move from Ben Rhodes to drag the brake a little bit, going through 3 and 4, get that run on Roper. And there was nothing Roper could have done there with the run that Ben Rhodes had. It was just basically side drafting back and forth. And if third place would come through and get it, and Anderson almost did, but very, very strong run from Ben Rhodes. Was up in the front basically the entire night, evaded some wrecks as well to get through to the victory, and goes through and gets it done. Now 4 career victories for him in the Truck Series.
Yeah, very impressive stuff from Ben Rhodes. He's put that stuff, obviously, that happened last year behind him. And yeah, if he can continue something like this, getting a multiple win season underneath his belt, that would be
that's what
huge
he
for
needs
him.
to do here.
So just build that consistency. He was great when it was back in the K&N days in the 41 car. He was deemed as this really great next thing. He's kind of stalled out in the Truck Series a little bit over the past couple of seasons. Maybe he's refound that form that we kind of predicted or anticipated that he would have a couple of seasons ago. Let's take a look at the notable finishers from this race, because there's actually quite a few.
There is a ton.
I mean, there's some guys that deserve their due diligence here. Obviously,
basically the entire top 10.
Yeah, I have the entire top 10 written down. Besides 6th place, I forget who that one is.
Sheldon Creed. Come on now.
Okay.
Defending series champion.
He doesn't deserve a notable finish. 6th place is where we expect him to be. But now we've already given him one, so great. So Jordan Anderson, Ben Rhodes, Corey Roper, the top 3 there. Obviously, they are in your notable finishers. Then we go to 4th, and it is just as notable. Ryan Truex for Nice Motorsports in his first full-time season down here in the Truck Series here with this team in the number 40. Was kind of laying back in the weeds for quite a bit of time, similar to what Brett Moffitt did. Moffitt didn't have quite the same luck. I think Truex may have gotten involved in one incident throughout the night, but besides
he had a spin, but nothing huge.
Nothing too great to really deter his efforts of getting a solid finish. In 4th place, that could go a long way for him. We'll see what Nice Motorsports can do. Yeah, and wasn't really up there for the stages, but he gets the overall finish there with 33 points on the night. So good night there for Ryan Truex. Carson Hocevar as well. He was involved in that big one there late, but had an incredible restart there, avoided that late wreck that was coming to the start-finish line at the finish, and he comes home with a 5th place run. So very impressive stuff there from the entire Nice Motorsports camp there with Ryan Truex and Carson Hocevar. Brett Moffitt not as lucky on this occasion tonight. Then we've got John Hunter Nemechek making his KBM debut, finishing 7th. They recovered from that big wreck there. He was involved in that pretty heavily, but avoid the wreck there at the end.
Stage points haul as well.
Yeah, he comes out of here with 47 points, which is tied for the second most on the night. So that's pretty impressive stuff there for him in his bid for the championship. Remember, he's coming from the Cup Series down to the Truck Series to try and go and win some races here. Looks strong, won a stage, so that bodes well for the entire season here for John Hunter Nemechek. And KBM had some speed there tonight, which was encouraging compared to what we've seen maybe a little bit previously.
They've been strong on the super speedways, to be fair. I think we'll get a true read for where they're at once we get to the 1.5 miles once again.
That's true.
They've been pretty solid on the road courses as well. Rafael Lessard, Alex Tagliani, especially last year, were up there in the mix. Canadian flavor there at that team. We don't know who's running the 51 yet for the Daytona road course. Maybe we get a fun name coming up for that. A strong showing from KBM overall.
Yeah. In 9th, we got Cordy Rohrbach. He had a pretty solid night as well, finishing 9th in the number 9 truck.
Don't forget, he finished 3rd last year too. So he was the other truck that was in the mix there in that crazy finish. So nice little day for those two underfunded teams.
Yeah, top 10 run there. So nothing to be too disappointed. Oh, he finished 8th. Excuse me on that one. I have that written down. He finished 8th, not 9th.
Yes.
Chandler Smith finishes 9th there in his kind of full season debut there for KBM, and then Drew Dollar there top 10 for all 3 KBM
very
trucks
impressive.
Despite that. So
very impressive debut for Drew Dollar.
Yeah, it translated. He got that experience on the Truck Series, which I think did him well for the ARCA Menard Series race that happened today. So we'll see what happens with Drew Dollar in his 1.5 mile appearances over the season as well. This is just the first of many for him in that 51 truck this season. So we'll see. Down the line, maybe he's this next guy that KBM is kind of looking at for a full-time ride if a spot opens up here. But a very impressive showing there entirely from KBM there. They managed to keep their noses clean for the most part. They got involved in some other people's messes, but they recovered to get a solid point.
Pretty minor stuff when they did get involved, though. So, it definitely a nice start for KBM there. And what's very much a rebuilt season for them.
Yeah. Grant Enfinger as well, finishing 11th there in his part-time duties this season. Not too bad for him. Thorsport looked pretty strong as well. All the big heavy hitters look pretty good. And Enfinger, a very good super speedway racer, just got involved in that wreck there as well. So Drew Dollar and I think Enfinger, they all kind of slid across the finish line. Just
there was a whole bunch of them. Yeah,
it was pretty crazy there. So Enfinger finishes 11th there in his first of 12 starts this season for Thorsport. We'll see if he puts anything else together for the other races he's missing, but we'll move on to 12th here. Chris Wright as well. Pretty solid run here for this guy. I was pretty pleasantly surprised there in the O2 truck there, just finishing there. He was kind of in the pack there at some point in time. I think he got involved in a wreck there at one point, but still finishing 12th place is nothing to be too sad about for that team. Spencer Boyd in 13th place there. David Gillen in 14th place there. So the Gillens were up at the front as well. It was pretty interesting to see that dynamic.
David got hung out to dry there on that last restart. He was up there at the front and got hung out. But I think it was by Sheldon Creed in that bunch. But
yeah, Jennifer Jo Cobb in 18th place. Pretty solid showing for her. That's one of her higher finishes that I've remembered in a while.
Fantastic qualifying effort. I got to say, truck qualifying was very, very difficult to make the show. Like Parker Kligerman missed the show in the 75.
That's a race-winning truck.
Usually, that's a truck that's usually pretty damn solid. But Jennifer Jo Cobb, I think she had like a top 15 time. Like she had a very, very strong qualifying effort and a nice solid top 20 finish for her here.
Yeah, very, very much so. Jason White in 20th place. The guy coming back here.
Shout out.
Yeah, I got to give him the shout out. Ran both races this weekend in the trucks and
Xfinity. Two different Jason Whites.
No,
this
it's
is
not.
The Canadian Jason White. Yep.
No, it's not.
Yeah, he's from BC. Yeah, this is your territory.
This is my guy. Oh, I thought he ran. Oh no,
we got two Jason Whites.
Well,
here.
Okay, they have to put Jason White in something else. Trucks and Xfinity next.
Come on, he even had like a Canadian flag on the back bumper and everything too.
Oh man. Oh, yeah. Sorry, Jason. I'm sorry. I'm sorry about that. But 20th place for the Canadian here. Pretty. Yeah, I'll take it for the BC guy. They got to represent out here. We need some
highest
more
finishing Canadian, unfortunately. Not
that is
a great day for avoiding the wrecks for the Canadians here.
Yeah, that's all the notable finishes I have from this one. If you want to point anybody out, go for it. But
I think we basically got everybody because it's Daytona, so there's about 15 trucks that finish, and everybody else was in some kind of wreck. But
I went with the guys that finished on the lead laps. That was my contingency
exactly.
on it.
So unfortunate again that we didn't get to see James Busher basically run anything, Tanner Gray run anything, Gus Dean as well was involved early on there. So hopefully we get to see those guys return. Obviously Tanner Gray running the full season. Hopefully we get to see Gus Dean in that Hill Motorsports truck again throughout this year. Hopefully we get to see James Busher again in the 44 at some point this season and maybe get some redemption for what was a very unfortunate start to the year.
For sure. That does it for the Truck Series race recap. Yeah. That's how they start their season.
Very
Congratulations
fun.
To Ben Rhodes on a successful race there. What do you want to rate it out of 10 here, Kyle? We got to do it for both of these races here.
Yeah, let's do it.
It seems like a fitting way to start our our season here. So what would you rate the Truck Series season opener out of 10?
I'll give it a straight up 8. I think it was a very strong race, but we didn't get a lot of green flag laps. There was a couple of lengthy cautions, but overall, when they were racing, it was extremely entertaining. We never got single file. We were always 2, most of the time 3, honestly. We had a lot of comers and goers as well. There's a lot of jostling for position, and we got a great finish out of it as well. So I wanted to see more green flag racing. We really only got that in the first stage. If we got more of that, then we'd be getting closer to a 9+, but for me, I'll give it a straight up 8.
Yeah, I'm like 7.58 for me. Like I think it's just right around there.
I think it's right in that sweet spot.
The finish bumps it way up. Like we were losing our minds while watching that
Yeah.
finish.
I'm watching Corey Roper, and then all of a sudden I see the 3 truck, and I'm like, no way. There's no way. He does.
I know
And,
you were like, oh,
yeah.
he did not finish second again, and he
Yeah.
did. So yeah, I'll give it a 7.75 to beat the medium there. Just so that it's split right in the middle.
Okay.
I don't know. I can't give it quite an 8 just because of the green flag racing thing. I just needed a little bit more of action and the speedy dry stuff that kind of messed with it there. So just a little bit on the lower side than Kyle, but still an overall really solid start to what is expected to be an incredible Truck Series season. Let's look at the Xfinity Series, Kyle. This is the one that happened most recently here in terms of time. Kind of up and down in terms of how you want to look at it. Tony Stewart in the booth as well for this one. I thought that he was actually pretty nice in the booth. I got to be honest. I was pretty
they had some good chemistry going today, and I'm sure it definitely helped with Clint Boyer having that prior relationship. Yeah. But that was a pretty solid little booth we had today.
They were poking fun at each other, which was the great part too. You know, they have some inside stuff.
The graphic off the top comparing the Daytona wins was the best.
Yeah, poor Boyer, slid across his roof, and then Tony has all these victories in the Xfinity Series here at Daytona. Like I remember early 2010s, he was just on a roll of winning these consecutively, even into the late 2000s there. Just great insight there from Tony, I thought as well, was, cheering on the 98 car to an extent, just obviously he's owning it.
I mean, what else would you expect?
It was pretty funny. But overall, thought it was a pretty solid broadcast in that respect, going for the Xfinity Series there. Qualifying was rained out, as we mentioned a little bit earlier on, so that had some big names kind of missing out on the field here. Tyler Reddick was going to be running this race. He does not make the field.
In a fast car too.
Yeah, and he does not make the race here, unfortunately, for the 03 car there. Just based off of owner points from last season, that's what it came down to, and that car did not have any. So he does not make the field. And
Reddick didn't run a single race last year, so he didn't even get the Champions Provisional, which we saw for James Buescher in the Truck Series. He had the penalty in qualifying, but got in through the Championship Provisional because he got the one race at the end of last year. Reddick, if he ran one race last year, then he would have been in. But didn't run anything.
They didn't make
didn't run anything, and didn't get in the show, which would have been great to see because we saw the O2 have a ton of speed in this.
Yes, it was a big storyline in this one with Brett Moffitt. Jordan Anderson goes from a high to such a low the next day. It rains on his parade, if you will. Jordan Anderson does not make the field for his highly anticipated debut here, going full-time in the Xfinity Series here for the points, going for Rookie of the Year honors as well. He doesn't get a shot to race in the Xfinity Series race that happened this afternoon. Chris Cockrum, Ronnie Bassett Jr., and Mario Goslin also did not make the field here just based off the owner points from last season. So some notable omissions there from what could have been a potential race-winning car even here with Tyler Reddick. And you never know with Jordan Anderson, too, if he kept his nose clean.
Yeah, we don't know what they're bringing to the field. So
exactly. So unfortunate start there, but Brandon Jones wins the opening stage here by 0.004 seconds over Riley Herbst. So pretty solid finish there for this first stage. Wish it was the actual finish to the actual race, but we'll take it for stage one there. So pretty solid opening stage. There was a couple of times where they were running up against the wall to a large extent, but overall it seemed like they had a pretty solid package underneath them. The competitive cars up at the front, obviously based off of owner points from last season, seemed like there was some pretty solid speed from all those guys once again this season. JGR looked really, really strong in this one as well. All four cars were just kind of all locked together. They kept to that Toyota strategy, and it seemed like it paid off for the most part for those guys. Dylan, Cindric, Gregson, Hemrick, Harrison Burton. Remember, there's two Burtons in the field now, so that we got to make sure that we get that correctly this season. Ryan Seek and Brandon Brown collect stage points in that opening one. What did you make of that first stage there, Kyle? It was an interesting one to say the least. You know, we had a close finish at the end of it, but the racing was pretty solid, I would say.
Yeah, I thought the first stage was really solid there because we saw people kind of getting to grips a little bit because the Xfinity guys had the least kind of on-track time we've seen so far because trucks had a full practice and full qualifying. Xfinity had practice, but they didn't get any qualifying. So it was a very much front-loaded grid. We didn't have any people needing to come up through the field really, except for like AJ Allmendinger having to make his way through because of the owner point situation. He was one of the big names that had to start near the back, but basically all the good cars were at the front there, and we kind of saw that for most of the day, for most of that first stage, I should say. As you mentioned, a very, very strong finish to that first stage. Too wide, going back and forth between the side drafts, which definitely played in as the race would go along. But overall, I think it was a very strong first stage.
For sure. Brandon Jones is such a high in one stage, does not end that way at the second one, unfortunately. Coming to the end of stage 2, literally to the end of it, as they were going to take the green and white checkered flag.
I guess technically he took the green, white checkered there, but not the way he wanted to.
Not the right one. Brandon Jones kind of got stuck in the middle there, went up for a side draft with a car on the outside lane, but then Mike Snyder was looking underneath him, and, he was inside the top 10 there, so every point could matter, especially for that 2-team Mike Snyder this season. So he made a bit of a move to the inside, and Brandon Jones thought he was clear back to his inside after the side draft. He was not. Comes down across the nose of the 2 car and then goes through the infield grass, and that thing is soaked from the rain, puddles everywhere, and grass, water, splitter, deadly combination to any sort of motor vehicle. And unfortunately for Brandon Jones, his day would come to an end in the infield grass there as he slides through it. When it's horizontal, it's fine. It won't dig up anything. But as soon as it came back to, vertical, I guess, whatever you want to look at it. But when he's going horizontal the way that he should be going on the track with the nose first, it's gone. It is dug into that grass, and unfortunately for him, he slides back up onto the track as well, and he collects Cody Ware and Alex Labay there, a Canadian there. So unfortunate for those 2 guys, just innocent bystanders there. Just the 17 car specifically, that was a pretty hefty impact.
Yeah, it was.
Glad to see all those guys were okay at the end of things. The 19 car looked really, really solid. So won a stage, and JGR was just solid overall. Disappointing that he ends his day a bit shorter than he would have obviously liked to. His teammates didn't fare so well later on as well, which we'll talk about. But your thoughts on that incident there, Kyle? Brandon Jones, just wrong place at the wrong time to an extent, but was not clear to the inside there with Mike Snyder.
Yeah, and it's a wreck that I saw coming because the lap prior, we saw Ryan Sieg up at the front for much of that second stage because there was a lot of train racing at the top, which we usually see for a decent amount of these Xfinity races. Just kind of ends up being that way at some point throughout the race or throughout the stage. But once they got too wide again, we started seeing a ton of side drafting. And we saw that from Ryan Sieg at one point. He went up the side draft, and the line on the inside just stayed there and didn't follow him to side draft. And when that happens, they're going to continue their momentum. You're going to lose a little bit because you don't have that draft anymore. You're going to be successful in your side draft, except you won't be able to get back down. And we saw that from Ryan Sieg at the front of the pack. Luckily for him and for everybody else, he didn't try and force it back down, or else there would have been a massive wreck there with about 1 to go. But as soon as I saw that, I was like, somebody for sure is going to do this coming to the green, white checkered there for the end of the stage. And sure enough, Brandon Jones goes up to side draft, trying to get that extra position, comes back down, it gets filled, and he goes flying into the infield, comes back up, a scary wreck there. Luckily, that wasn't any worse because that could have been really, really bad.
Yeah.
Lucky for Riley Herbst as well to narrowly avoid that. That was a damn close call for him, but just kind of one of those wrecks that you saw coming from a mile away. It was just a matter of who and when. Unfortunate for Brandon Jones. He was talking about how that was one of his better runs that he's had so far at a super speedway. So he's learning there, had a fast car, just kind of a wrong place at a wrong time kind of move, but at the same time, that was very preventable. Didn't need to force it back down. And I don't know if that's a spotter thing or Jones just trying to force it or something like that, trying to clear himself, but definitely a bit of an error there coming to the end of stage 2.
Yeah, there was a bit of give and take there with the Ryan Sieg incident. There was nothing really Ryan Snyder could do there. It was just wrong place at the wrong time, unfortunately. For
Snyder isn't going to back out of that, and he's not supposed to.
No.
That's up to Jones and his spotter to recognize that they went up to side draft and they're not going to be able to get back down, whether that call didn't come or it was too slow, or he got the call and he still went for it anyways. That one's on Jones.
Yeah. The red flag would come out as a result of that wreck as well. And kind of overlooked in that one, Brett Moffitt actually won that stage. Brett Moffitt wins stage 2
how
there.
about that?
Pretty impressive showing from him. He seemed like he had the best pushing car and had a pretty good leading car as well. That O2 car came to play there for Our Motorsports. And
and
they
even
should be
though,
going for the points in the Xfinity Series.
well, what I'll say is even if he isn't running for points, they still got the owner points there, and they can still go and try to make the owners championship or playoffs. I still like the move personally of going and running with Nice, because I think Nice has a better shot than Our Motorsports does. But hey, you know what? He almost proved us wrong in this one, or myself wrong in this first race. But
if he wins,
we know they got the speed on the super speed. I know. I just feel like if you're playing the odds game, I like their odds of doing something or being consistent more in the Truck Series than getting a fluke win and then losing out in the first round in Xfinity.
I disagree. We talked about this when the
news came out. I know, we talked about it again. I knew it was going to come up again.
But I this race is on scaling towards my side of things in terms of my argument. But we are very, very early on in the season, so I'll hold back my judgment to the most part. But I still think Brett Moffitt should definitely be going for the points for Xfinity here. There's a shot for him to make the playoffs, and was very, very close to making the playoffs already here if he was going for points. But yeah. Ty Dillon, that is, Austin Cindric, Justin Haley, Brandon Brown, Ryan Sieg, Jeremy Clements get some points here as well on the stage. Mike Snyder, and Noah Gragson, and Josh Berry as well. Kind of a quiet day for Josh Berry. We expect him to excel on more of the short track kind of circuits. But
even though Dale Jr. stealing one of those from him at Martinsville.
But Josh Berry was just kind of in a placement role, I felt like today, learning a lot, of course. And was helping out his teammates quite a bit as well. He was kind of like nip and tuck with Allgaier. It felt like a lot. Those two kind of moved in unison. But impressive for Josh Berry, I'd say, up until the point where he gets involved in a wreck, which we'll talk about here in a second. With about 45 laps to go, another wreck ensues on the front straightaway. This time they were coming for green flag pit stops, it seemed, with the JRM cars, the Junior Motorsport ones. And obviously somebody did not get the memo as Michael Annett gets plowed through from behind. And Chad Fincham was just kind of went right through him there. A similar wreck as we saw in the Truck Series to an extent, where the car goes left first, but then comes out right across the track back into traffic. And unfortunately here it got some contenders in it. Jeffrey Earnhardt, Gray Goulding, a fan favorite amongst myself at least. And it just,
I always love that Panini scheme as well. The trading cards, for me, I love it. And we've seen him be right there at the end of some super speedways last year as well. So unfortunate not to see them get to the finish there.
Yeah, and the big one probably, well, there's two big ones, but the biggest one, Noah Gragson involved in this one. He would be done for the day. Terminal damage to the rear end of that car. Bailey Curry was in this one, and then Ryan Sieg as well. He had some damage there. He had some issues, I felt like, the entire race, just underlying stuff.
He was leaking oil at one point.
Then I think it was just kind of insult to injury, that one, and then they just decided to park it behind the wall there. So your pick to win this one was out of the race a little bit earlier than my one, but
what can I say?
I don't know. They're just taking a little bit of time to get to grips. I felt like with the 39 car to an extent in this one wasn't quite there, but they were probably playing a little bit of a different strategy.
Lead quite a few laps, to be fair.
I know, but I don't know if I tend to look at what the car looks like and stuff, like in terms of the draft, and I'm a bit of a nut with that stuff. I feel like with just terms of looks, I don't know the aerodynamics of the mathematics behind it all, but just in terms of the eye test, I don't know. I just thought the 39 car was just a little bit off in this one. We'll see if they can right that ship when it comes time for the Daytona Road Course next weekend. So an unfortunate situation here, Kyle. Michael Annett just going innocently for a green flag pit stop. He's won this race in the past as well, so was doing a decent job up to that point. But Chad Fincham did not get the message.
Seems like a few people didn't get the message either. It was all very convoluted and strange there. And we didn't get any green flag stops in the truck race. So it was the first time we got to see that. And sure enough, it was chaos. And a lot of the time it is at Daytona. You got to be very, very clean with it. And Annett was frustrated, and rightfully so. But that's up to the spotters. That's up to everybody in this one to understand when people are going and relay the message there. And evidently it didn't get so, and some innocent bystanders taken out in that wreck.
Yeah, it was unfortunate for these guys. For a lot of these teams, this is their best shot to win at Daytona and Talladega, and we
Yeah,
saw some guys get caught up in
for a
that.
lot of the small teams, it's very much boom or bust because they don't got the big budgets. They can't afford to go out and wreck cars like any of the big teams do, and even then, the big teams don't like doing so. So for the small teams, it's kind of a catch-22 with your best opportunity in the year to go out and get a really good finish for your sponsors, for your team, really get kind of that finish, or even a chance to win a race, as we've seen in years past, and from people like Jordan Anderson going up and going and getting second place finishes. Like, it's the chance for those small teams to go out and do something big for their teams. But the other side of it is, a lot of the time you're probably going to get caught up in something and get in a wreck and cost yourself a lot of money as well. And unfortunately in this one, especially so in Xfinity, because it's very much, you get like 10, 11 cars that are from the big teams and the rest of the field is all kind of smaller owned teams. We did see quite a few smaller cars get beat up in this one, which was unfortunate to see, because even in a wreck, which we'll get to later, some guys there at the end of a race, which were looking to contend for a great top 10 finish, ended up wrecking out and costing themselves a lot of money. So I saw that a little bit on Twitter, and it's always the catch-22 of these races. It's their best opportunity, but a lot of the time it ends up costing them as well, and lost some big cars as well in that wreck.
Yeah, and we lost some big cars in this next one here. This was the big one, kind of the most controversial one of them all. The JGR teammates get together here in Ty Dillon and Daniel Hemric. I don't know what to make of this one, to be honest. Still, I initially thought it was more Hemric's fault, but after looking at the replays, I could see more of it being Ty Dillon's fault, but I'm just kind of maybe 50-50 on it. So it's an interesting one. Ty Dillon behind Daniel Hemric on the back straightaway on the inside. He gets a push, he says, from the 8 car of Josh Berry, and that sends him to the outside of Daniel Hemric. I don't believe that that's the case, but he still makes an impressive move to the outside to go around his teammate there and was almost clear. But Daniel Hemric's nose was right there on the left rear quarter panel of Ty Dillon. And I feel like there could have been a little bit of give and take there, but behind the wheel, I can't judge from just a spectator standpoint on what they're feeling. If the arrow is just that bad where he just is kind of so tight or loose or whatever it is that he can't back out of it. But they end up making contact there, turning Ty Dillon around, collecting Daniel Hemric as well. Collected a bunch of big names in this one. Jeb Burton was involved in this one. Justin Allgaier, Justin Haley, my pick to win. His luck kind of ran out. Colleague was a little bit on the conservative side of things the entire race. We can talk about that if you want. Josh Berry, Riley Herbst, Brandon Brown, Jeremy Clements, and just a whole bunch of names here got involved in this one. It was an unfortunate turn of events. All these guys in the outside lane are just kind of innocent bystanders, with the 2 JGR cars being dumb on the inside. I don't know what to make of it. I don't know what you think on in terms of if there's a blame to be put there, racing incident, but what are your thoughts on the big one, the one that took out the heavy hitters in this one?
Yeah, for me, it's not 2 dumb JGR cars. It's one, and I'm looking at the 54 there. I really don't know what Ty Dillon was trying to pull there, because Hemric was right on the yellow line, as you're supposed to, on the inside line. Dillon behind him comes off the yellow line a little bit, gets the push from Berry then, and then he takes it 3 wide, which is, I guess, what you got to do in that situation. When you come off the bottom and then you get the push. So I guess that's what he was talking about there when he said that Berry forced him up there, even though he came off the bottom first, and the guy following is just going to follow you in that situation. It's not like he knows that Hemric is staying on the yellow line and Dillon is coming off of it. So he gets the push, goes up, tries to side draft, and then tries to force his way down and gets turned. It's the same kind of thing that we saw with Brandon Jones there. It's the same thing we almost saw with Ryan Sieg there. It's the aggressive move, trying to side draft and then come back down. And for Ty Dillon there, it just wasn't the move. It wasn't the time to try it as well. And it was just trying to do a little too much too early, I think. So I really don't know what else Daniel Hemric's supposed to do there. He stayed on the bottom, stayed on the yellow line there. Guy forced it 3 wide and then came down across his nose. I really don't know what else he's supposed to do. I guess you can say pump the brakes a little bit, let him down, because he's your teammate.
I thought it went on a little bit long. I thought he could have avoided that, but
That one's on Ty Dillon for me. You can't go 3 wide and then try and force your sweat. You can't clear yourself in that situation when you're at the front of the pack and try to force it like that. I get what he's trying to do. He doesn't have a lot of opportunities this year. He's trying to show himself well, but it's just trying to do too much in that one and cost a lot of people some good finishes.
Yeah. Yeah, you make a good point. Like, it's
I feel pretty strongly about that one.
okay. Well,
I'll hear the argument, but when I'm looking at that, that's all on Ty Dillon for me.
okay, fair enough. Okay, yeah. I'll leave my remarks to be to myself. But yeah, it's just a terrible sequence of events there. JGR running well all day long, and
It felt inevitable.
Of course, I felt like they were a little bit sporadic at times, but I didn't expect maybe the teammates to take each other out there. It's just terrible for a lot of these guys. I wanted to touch a little bit on colleague here, Kyle, just because Jeb Burton, Justin Haley, and AJ Allmendinger, they kind of played it safe the entire race. Haley was a little bit more aggressive than I would say Burton or Allmendinger, led a little bit more laps. But besides that, we did not see the colleague strength that we are very accustomed to on these super speedways, where they're all in line, basically at the front, top 5 situation there. One maybe falls back, namely Justin Haley, and then finds his way back up to the field at some point in time. But I don't know what you thought of colleague, but I was a little bit disappointed maybe by their kind of efforts. Maybe they were playing a little bit more conservative there, but I don't know if it was the right thing to do. And we've seen their aggressive strategy of staying at the front work so often, it seems, for them in the past couple. I mean, Justin Haley was going for 4 straight super speedway wins. And I mean, I didn't really feel like the 11 car was anywhere close to that, but what are your thoughts on maybe colleague performance?
Yeah, it just seemed like they couldn't ever get together. And we've seen them in past races get together pretty easily, and then just kind of right at the front from there. And this time I only saw all 3 cars connected in the same line once, and that was on the outside line, and they had really nowhere to go. So it wasn't a situation. Yeah, exactly. So it wasn't a situation where like you have somebody on the front row, you keep them there, you get the second car there eventually, and then you get the third car there eventually, and just kind of ride it out at the front. They never really got to the front altogether, and kind of shows in some of the results and some of the stats from the race. I don't know if maybe not having Ross Chastain there as well maybe impacts things, because he's a very aggressive super speedway racer. He's always at the front, always forcing the issue, and that plays well into colleague strategy for what we've seen in the past. Jeb Burton, not that same kind of driver. He did kind of do the best of all the colleague racers, especially at the end of the race, finished the best of them all. But maybe it's a different mix. Maybe it was a different strategy, or maybe it was something where they just, for this one race, eventually couldn't get it all hooked up together. And of course, as well, if you look back to last year, they didn't win the season opener at Daytona either. They've been very, very strong at Talladega. They won the second race at Daytona, but yeah, exactly. But Talladega has been more of their playing ground. Daytona, they haven't been able to break through in that season opening race quite yet. I think they tried to do it. They just couldn't get the 3 connected and then get to the front. And that's something that they've done with relative ease these last, 3 super speedway races.
Yeah, I mean, I say that they didn't show me enough, but they finished 4th and 5th with Jeb Burton and AJ Allmendinger. So I guess they kind of
that to be 1st and 2nd.
They didn't get the results, but I don't know. I just thought that
still got a good point.
The result was there, but I don't know if the speed was necessarily there. And I thought some stuff that I saw from Twitter that in terms of race updates, that like there were some complaints about their speed. Yeah. So yeah, I think that's a good point. They just weren't what we are accustomed to seeing with colleague, but they still end up getting 2 cars inside the top 5. So not a bad day overall for that team. Just they'll come back strong, I'm sure, with Talladega with their super speedway package. And like you said, they are traditionally a little bit better on that track as well. So the final caution of the day, and you alluded to this a little bit earlier on, took out some names that were looking for that solid finish, namely Landon Castle, after he gets turned by Jeb Burton with a huge run on the outside. And unfortunately, Tommy Joe Martins, representing by your shirt here.
Tried to bring the good luck, didn't pay out.
No, it did not. Unfortunately, he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. I thought he drove a pretty smart race, stayed at the back for the most part. But
he was saving it, and then he just hit the grass. And the grass, especially in the state that it is, it's just as soon as you touch it, it's a bomb waiting to go off, and just completely ripped off that front splitter. Like he had it saved. He was still good to go and get a solid top 10 or at least top 15 finish, and just completely ripped the front end off the thing, and just nothing you can do there.
No, it was just so unfortunate. I was really rooting for Landon Castle there at the end. I really wanted to see him get a good.
They were
I thought he
running
could be
like
up in the mix
sixth,
too.
seventh. Like they were doing very strong, but yeah, and that was a bad block attempt from Castle as well. Burton
Yeah,
had the run to the outside. He tried to
should have just
block
let
it
him go.
late. Should have just let him go. You still had some time to work with as well there, but yeah, bit of a heartbreaker there for Landon Castle and his return to the Xfinity Series.
Yeah, oh, man, it's just just so much of a disappointment. Like I really wanted those guys to do well, and when I see
Yeah,
them at the finish, they're on that restart there, the one before they obviously wreck. I'm
yeah,
like, top 6 for Landon Castle. Could I see a Landon Castle like potential win here? I don't know, but we've seen crazier things, so that's why I'm saying
yeah,
that.
we
But
have.
just unfortunate there for those two guys, two fan favorites amongst everybody in the sport,
Oh
just
yeah.
getting taken out in the same one there. And nothing wrong with what Jeb Burton did there. He couldn't have done anything to avoid that. Landon Castle just
No,
came up and
nothing
just a
on Jeb
racing
Burton there.
incident there.
Yeah.
Unfortunate for both of those guys that they're shot at a victory and a solid finish there comes up a little bit short. And once again, we go to a green, white checkered in this one, similar to the truck series here. Only one attempt as well for this one between Austin Cindric and Harrison Burton
Yeah.
at the front.
Do we go 4 for 4 as well? Green
We'll have
weight
to-
checkered
we'll talk
for,
about that
for
maybe
each
at the
race
end of it.
overtime.
We'll talk
Hey,
about that.
I'm just tossing it out there. Just
Good,
tossing
good
it
little
out.
tease maybe. And yeah, it seemed like those two guys had avoided the incidents the whole day. Cindric was just ahead of it. Harrison Burton was the lone surviving, really intact JGR car at the end of it all. And it really came down to the push that Austin Cindric got on the restart. And that came from AJ Allmendinger. That outside line with Brett Moffitt and Harrison Burton didn't quite get that momentum that they needed. Cindric had the momentum on the inside with AJ Allmendinger, and it was kind of smooth sailing from there for Austin Cindric. They tried to get a run kind of built up behind him there, generated behind him. Just didn't quite materialize in the way that they had hoped for, and Cindric was doing a very good job at blocking the air and blocking the runs and whatever
Great
he
job
could do, and just never quite had the run long enough to getting to Cindric's bumper. It kind of dissipated a little bit too soon, and by that time it was easier to block for Cindric, and they gave it their best shot, everybody behind him, but at the end of the day, the defending Xfinity Series champion Austin Cindric opens the season off in his defense of the title with a very commanding win there at Daytona. Very impressive showing the entire day from that 22 team. And that's the first victory for Roger Penske in the Xfinity Series at Daytona as well. So
How about that?
that's an interesting one. I never would have thought that would be the case, but Cindric gets it done for the captain, and a very solid showing with the only 3 Fords really in the field that are competitive. Cindric did a masterful job today with the less of the manufacturers and the teammates and everything like that. I don't think that's stated enough that he basically did that all by himself out there today. Very impressive showing from Austin Cindric there. Kind of an anticlimactic finish at the end of it, but at the end of the day, we're not going to have a photo finish or a dramatic finish in every single race on these super speedways. So what do you make of Austin Cindric's first victory of, I'm sure, many this season? If he could become a threat on these super speedways, the field is in trouble this season.
Yeah, he was fantastic at the end of that race. And with those Xfinity cars as well, there's much more of that air bubble in behind.
Yeah.
And we saw that a lot and saw Moffitt complaining about it at the end of the race, or just mentioning it, I should say, as to why he wasn't really able to break through. And Austin Cindric was throwing blocks extremely well in the way that he wasn't throwing them late. And he was throwing them early. He was getting it there because if he can position the car before the run gets to his bumper and he's really throwing a late block, well, then he's going to have the air bubble behind him, and it's going to be especially tough to break through that. And we heard multiple people talk about that air bubble throughout the day. He was throwing great blocks. He was throwing smart blocks, and that's why he won that race fairly easily there at the end. He made it look easy, at least I should say.
Yeah.
Great for Brett Moffitt there to hold his line on the outside when Harrison Burton went to the inside, tried to get the lead, and got blocked there by Cindric. Didn't quite get the run there at the end that he needed. Got a push there at the end, just came a little bit too late. But a great run for the O2 there, their best finish. Their first ever stage win as well. Very strong showing for them, and they'll be in that owner point hunt as well. They'll make things close, especially if they can build on last season. I know you want him running full time.
If only he was running for regular season points for the championship.
But hey, you know what? Well, then that would make it even more heartbreaking, is what I'll say. Anyway,
I don't think so. It would have been like, holy smokes, could the O2 be a playoff car? Like,
well, to be fair, we saw the exact same kind of super speedway speed from this team last year. They were a top 5, top 10 contender last year as well. So I don't know.
I'm gonna die on this rock, man.
I still like Nice more. Anyways, a kind of straightforward top 5 though. I gotta say, not like what we saw in the Truck Series where we saw like one regular name and then just chaos the rest of the top 5. Fairly straightforward top 5 outside of the O2 maybe, but even then I expected them to be in the conversation in the hunt. Mix it up a little bit 6 through 10, but overall, I think a fairly straightforward Xfinity Daytona season opener.
Yeah, you had the heavy hitters that maybe were anticipated to be at the end of it, got involved in a wreck as they usually do, and we had a big name usually kind of come out on top in the Xfinity Series. That comes a little bit more so in Xfinity than the other series with that bigger guy that wins the race. So let's take a look at the notable finishes of this one. Obviously, the top 5 here with Cindric, Moffitt, Harrison Burton edges out Jeb Burton there, 3rd and 4th respectively. And AJ Allmendinger brings home that 5th place finish there. So solid showing from Kaulig like we talked about, but that speed was a little bit lacking there. Great recovery from Jeb Burton, though, being involved in that wreck and still managing to get a top 5 out of it. That could go a long way along the season. Brandon Brown in 6th. That could be huge for that team as well, starting their season off.
Second biggest points haul out of anybody running for playoffs. So Brett Moffitt and Ty Dillon got more owner points in that one, but neither are running for the playoffs. So Brandon Brown picking up 38 points there with a very solid 6th place finish and getting some stage points as well. That's a really, really strong opening to the season for them.
He's 2nd in points, guys. Like that's pretty impressive here for Brandon Brown.
Stop
Take a picture, make it. Maybe it'll last a little longer than it will. But Mike Snyder there in 7th place. So solid debut for him. Had that issue with Brandon Jones at the end of the 2nd stage there, but besides that, did a pretty good job of avoiding the wrecks. I'm going to be totally butchering this last name, that guy that finished in 9th. I don't know how you know how to say it, but Brandon
8th, I think. Brandon Godovic.
Brandon Godovic, is that the name? Okay.
Yeah, that's how they're saying it. The Sam Hunt 26, which will feature Santino Ferrucci for much of the year. For some reason, they had the in-car visor cam on them for this race, which was kind of cool to see because they were riding around the back for much of the race. So you got to see the kind of the crash evasion, which I think was maybe a shrewd move for Fox to toss it on somebody that would ride around the back so you can get a different kind of look rather than the in-car, which we usually see, which is somebody just directly involved in the wreck or directly behind them. So definitely a different look at things and a nice solid top 10 for them. They're going to have a high-profile driver in that mix for most of the year, but a solid little opening there for Godovic.
Yeah, for sure. Apologies on not knowing how to pronounce that last name. It is a bit late, but it is later for you, so props to you for getting that right. Daniel Hemrick there for JGR getting actually a pretty solid recovery here in 9th place, so he can take that to the bank all day long. I think he's sponsored by a bank as well, so that bodes well
Poppy
for him.
Bank, right?
Poppy Bank, right? Yeah. No pun intended there. Jason White, the real Jason White. The real one.
I think they're both real.
Okay.
Just one's from British Columbia and the other's from Virginia.
I remember the most. Okay. Not this, other one that's from BC. I love you, Jason White, both of you. But this one, the guy that we talked about on the show prior to this one, from the old Truck Series days and the 23 truck, makes his way over to the 23 Xfinity Series car. He gets a top 10 run. So impressive showing there from Jason White. Joe Graf Jr. there in 11th, Cesar Baccarella in 12th, Stephen Parsons there in 13th place. So pretty solid showing from he's Phil Parsons' son, correct?
Yes, he is.
That's
they were talking about that in the ARCA race there.
That's what I thought. Very impressive showing there. So a good day for the Parsons overall. Ty Dillon there gets to 14th place there. So had good stage points. Recovered to what he could there with the mangled car that he had at the end of it. Kyle Weatherman in 15th place. He's always kind of around in these super speedways, getting top 15 runs. So impressive showing.
Yeah, he's running full time with Mike Harmon this year as well. So decent little day for them.
Matt Mills in 16th place there. Good showing for him. Jesse Little in 17th. Ryan Vargas in 18th place. Was involved in a whole bunch of different things there. He was stuck in the grass at one point. Got it going again. But not the greatest day, I think, for Ryan Vargas in terms of his standards. But
you would have hoped for a little bit more, but still get a top 20. So
finishing
don't lose any ground, really.
Yeah, and Danny Bone finishes 19th place, and that rounds out the notable finishers for the Xfinity Series race. That's all the news, recap, notes, and everything that I've got for this one. A little bit of a shorter one on deck for this one. But any final thoughts on the Xfinity Series, Truck Series, and we'll just kind of look at the Daytona 500 quickly before we wrap things up.
Are we going to give race ratings for this one as well here?
Yes. Let's give it out of 10 on this one.
Oh, you go first on this one.
Fair enough. For me, this one's a 6.5. I can't give it higher than that one. I felt it was a little stagnant at times. The wrecks were a little over dramatic at times with the infield grass just tearing the cars up. If it was any other time, they would be a little bit better. So I put it down to that. Nothing really in terms of the race that they can do. It's the weather conditions. They can't just air dry the grass for the drivers. But I don't know. I was just thought there was some clumsy mistakes at times. I wish we got a little bit more green flag racing in this one as well. There was just a little bit too much caution and too many caution laps for me in this one. So it's definitely lesser than the truck race. I put it like a whole point lower, I think, than the truck series race, but I'm expecting better things as the season goes along for this series.
Yeah, I'm going to go with a 6, actually. So I'm going with 2 full points difference because in the truck race, when we did get the green flag racing, it was very entertaining. In this one, we got a couple of trains throughout this race. And we got a couple of dumb wrecks as well that took out some good cars. We didn't get an overly fantastic finish either. It was pretty straightforward from Cindric. Basically, as soon as he threw the block on Moffat, you knew that he was going to win the race. And it was just basically if there would be a big wreck for everybody else coming to the line. I'm glad there wasn't. Save some more cars for later in the year. But just kind of a stale race throughout the entire thing. And the first stage was decent at times. We never really got 3 wide racing. We never really kept 2 wide racing for much later in the race. And then the overtime was unspectacular. Maybe it's the truck series setting a very high precedent for the crazy racing that they were having. But even the duels and everything like that earlier in the week were very strong as well. So Xfinity kind of much better than ARCA. That's not saying much though, but I'll give this one a 6.
Yeah, I don't know. Xfinity series is always kind of hit or miss on these super speedways. So yeah, I don't know. It's just a bit of a rough one, but
it was all right. It wasn't anything great. It wasn't horrible.
There was no edge of the seat action for me in this one. Yeah. It was just kind of like meh, like for the majority of it. Of course, during the wrecks, you're like, "Ooh, what's gonna happen here?" But besides that, the finish and everything, when I saw the 2 guys that were out front, I'm like, yeah, this is probably going to go one of their ways. I don't see both of them falling back to the pack and somebody getting around them, both of them. So it was either going to be Burton or Cindric there kind of for me at the end. And Cindric got the edge on that restart, and that's all she wrote, really. So that does it for the
first Xfinity winner to win from pole at Daytona as well since 2009, since Clint Bowyer as well. They mentioned that one on the broadcast as well. So a little more Clint Bowyer tie in there, but yeah, kind of wild that Penske had never won an Xfinity at Daytona, and Cindric is the guy to do it, and he gets to go out and try and pull off the double here later today.
He does. It's a big opportunity there. Team Penske car once again for Austin Cindric here for the Daytona 500, but that does it for the Truck Series and Xfinity Series race recaps for the opening weekend here at Daytona. We've got the Daytona 500 to look forward to now, Kyle. We've done our kind of fantasy preview in the last episode, so make sure you go check that out. Finish your fantasy lineups just prior to the green flag of the 500. I think we did a pretty good job. Alan Cavana's trying to steal our stuff, it seems like, but I think we've done a pretty good job of setting everybody up for this one. There's the potential, like you mentioned a little bit earlier, 4 straight overtime finishes potentially for this one.
I think we see it.
Do you think you see that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to see the race end at 500 miles. That's always what everyone wants, but I feel like something dumb's going to happen coming to the white flag or something like that. There's always something that happens late in those final last 5 laps, and we always go over, but you know what? That's okay because the racing with this package is fantastic, and I want actual finishes, so I'm very okay going over 500.
Oh man, I'm pretty pumped for this one. It's gonna be an insane one. Pre-race starts pretty early on, I believe, as well. 1 p.m. Eastern, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and not only that as well, at noon Eastern as well. ESPN is airing the E60 Intimidator as well, which looks phenomenal. I can't wait to watch that. I don't know if TSN for us in Canada will be airing that at the same time, or if that's something we got to check out later. I hope they're airing that live because there is the ESPN relationship there, but that E60 is going to be phenomenal. It's going to be definitely an emotional opening to the 500, just given the 20th anniversary that is, but I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be a fantastic 500. There's so many different storylines, so many different players, and we got it all in lock.
Yeah. Are we going to be able to watch the ESPN thing, or is there a way to watch that? Or
I think it'll be simulcast on TSN. Like, I think that's what they'll do.
Okay.
So it'll be on at the same time here because TSN has the NASCAR rates as well. So I would imagine
Hope
they would
so.
have I would imagine they have the E60 on at noon and then have that go into the pre-race. I would think.
Hopefully.
I can check that quickly on Guide if you want.
Yeah, that would be great.
But yeah, we'll see.
It's this Daytona 500.
It looks so good though. If you haven't watched the trailer at the very least, you need to go do so. It's gonna E60s are always fantastic, but this one especially is gonna be great because not only does it talk about Dale Sr. and his legacy and everything, but it more focuses on what his death meant for the sport and all the safety improvements that happened afterwards. And that's something that very often goes overlooked in the legacy of Dale Earnhardt Sr. So I'm very excited for that.
Yes, we've got in the Daytona 500 as well on lap 3. Everybody's going to be doing a salute to him.
Yes.
So that's going to be obviously an emotional time, I'm sure, for a lot of his fans and a lot of just fans of the sport entirely. I'm happy. I cannot believe it's been 20 years since his passing. Like, that number just seems remarkable. That it's been that long.
It's nuts.
Yeah.
It doesn't look like it's on TSN, by the way. So it's going to be something that we'll have to catch later.
Brutal. Yeah,
I'm sure it'll be part of their doc collection or something afterwards. But
yeah, hopefully I'll be definitely trying to watch that as soon as I can whenever it becomes available to us up here in Canada, because Lord knows we would love to have some access to some things that happen in the States. But yeah, going to be, I'm sure, a wild finish to the Daytona 500 tomorrow. Over under on cars, I don't even want to take a guess on finishing the race on the lead lap because it could go a lot of different ways.
Okay, but what's your over under? What are you setting here?
Ooh, on the lead lap?
Sure.
10.5.
I'm taking the over.
You're gonna take the over on that?
Yeah, I think we'll get like 15 or 16. They're not clean cars, but I think we'll get a decent ways over that in terms of lead lap finishers.
Okay, you're gonna say like over 15?
If you set it at 14.5, I'll still take the over, but it would be close for me. I think we get like 15 or 16.
Okay, I would probably take the under on 15. On terms of lead lap, I would probably
lead lap finishers 14.5 over under. I'm taking the over. You'll take the under.
Yeah.
I think that's pretty good.
That's pretty good. Yeah, I think we've got it all set up, man. It is race day for anybody watching it. Any final thoughts before we wrap up the 4th of 5 episodes during this hectic week that we've been on?
Feeling good, man. I cannot wait for this race. It feels like we've been waiting for this for a while, and yet at the same time, it feels like it's already here. It's kind of this weird feeling coming up to it, but it's the biggest day of the season. It trumps even the championship. It's the biggest race for a reason. It's got the most history. It's got the biggest spectacle, and I'm hoping it delivers. And I expect it to deliver because, as I said, there's a lot of storylines. There's a lot of players. It's a wide open field once again, and it's going to be fantastic.
Yes, Fox has got you covered all day tomorrow, starting on FS1 with Race Day. Make sure you go watch that as well. Michael Jordan and his interview with Bubba Wallace and Denny Hamlin will be in the pre-race show, so that should be interesting to watch as well. And then, of course, it's on the main network, Fox, carrying this race. We're going to have Chris Myers as well back at the track, so that's going to be a fun addition. And we're going to have just an entire great day of racing just leading up to the 500, and we'll have some fans in the stands as well. Obviously, socially distanced. They seem like they've been doing a pretty good job of that at Daytona as well. From
apparently they've been kicking out people not wearing masks in the designated areas as well, so they're doing a good job on that.
Yeah, that's all we can really ask for at the moment in time. So make sure to follow us on Instagram at The Green Flag. We've got you covered there for the past couple of days. We've been putting out some new stuff. Kyle's been doing really great job on the fastest lap stuff, and we've got the news cranking out on my end. So we'll have I'll probably be making a Daytona 500 winner graphic, who that is. Stay tuned for that. Yeah. It's going to be a fun one. If
you also need a quick look at fantasy, we got those posted there as well. If you don't got the time to check out our justifications and my justifications for my randomizer as well. So if you need a quick look there, you can check those out as well. We're going to have a ton of stuff over the entire season, and All-Stars this week. So you get a bit of a taste of everything that we'll have on lock.
Yeah, and I'm not looking forward to the embarrassment that random.org has in store for me tomorrow. Make sure to follow us on Twitter at the Green Flag Pod. The link to the fantasy league as well will be in the description of the YouTube video. Go join us. See what you can do head-to-head with us. Do you take some of our advice with our fantasy lineups, or do you go with something entirely different?
Use your own randomizer.
Yeah, you could totally go with that. Look at my stay away froms. That would probably be a good guide for success for you as well this season as it was last year. But fun stuff. Make sure to like the video as well. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. We really, really appreciate it. Seems like our stuff has been doing better than what we maybe were expecting over the past couple of days. So we're really appreciative of everybody that's been watching us over the past couple of days. And it's finally time. Daytona 500 is here. For this episode, I've been Lucas Wacker. He's been Kyle Cushman. Signing off for now. We will talk to you tomorrow to recap the Daytona 500 and instant analysis, or later today, actually. I guess it's going to be a fun story. And enjoy the Daytona 500, everybody, and stay safe. It's going to be an exciting, exciting race.